I'd like to welcome everyone back to the IES meeting. We did have some technical difficulties with sound. I think we've solved that with all the councillors and with Alex Game, the consultant. So I'll believe there were some questions.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the IES.
Councillor Goldstein, did you have a question?
No, I don't have a question, but I'm happy to move a recommendation when you're ready.
Okay. Is there any other questions from any? The mayor's put a hand up for a question.
I didn't really get a reply from my previous question, so if that could be responded to.
That was about the removal of trees. Who was Alex? And climate change adaptation. So I'll move to Alex, please.
Can you hear me this time through your chair?
I can hear you clearly. Everyone's nodding their head. Thanks.
Great. All right. So I think there was a couple of questions, and I did see the IPCC report, and yeah, it is damning of how bad climate change will be. I think there's a couple of answers. We haven't gone into the level of detail of exactly working out, how many trees are removed and what's going in. This is still very much the high level, report. But with the actual tree species selections, it's just giving us a broad range, like a palette to almost choose from. And I guess we have got a range of evergreen natives. We do have some exotics and deciduous trees, and that was, I guess, we got a lot of feedback saying from the community that they did want exotic trees and they wanted, a little bit of change and the seasonality. All of the trees put forward are extremely robust and hardy. Once established, we'd expect them to be relatively drought-proof. For example, there's even the native white cedar, the Melia. So that's a deciduous tree, but it's a native, very hardy. The jacaranda, as we know, although it's deciduous, extremely hardy. There's turkey oaks as well. So the species selection is broad, but we can fine tune as well when we start to think about watering regimes as well and how long the establishment phase is. One of the other interesting things to note that we've been looking at is that part of the
bit of feedback. I think it's Councillor Goldstein. If you could turn your mic off, thanks. And yeah, just if you're not speaking, just have it turned off. Thank you. Continue, Alex. Thanks.
Yeah, so as part of Green Adelaide and the climate change adaptation strategy and sort of resilient cities, there are lots of reports on that. They do talk about actually watering trees more as well to try and combat the urban heat island. So that might be something to think about as well as the council moving forward, that there are actually measures that we can do to try and reduce the urban heat island impact. And one of the big ones is to actually water our trees more. And we know that some of those, I guess, deciduous trees take up a lot of water and they provide good, urban shade and do provide sort of the cooling benefits. So I think it's probably got a little bit more layers to just saying, let's plant all natives, because I think the community did want that mix. What we've put forward is just a palette that we can choose from. And I think we need to look at all the benefits and sort of weigh it up. And, I guess we're not sure what our water or what your water supplies will be in 2 years' time as well. And there's always, that's sort of a changing beast as well, I imagine. So, yeah, it's, I think what we've got, we're happy with the palette and it can be refined as we move forward as well.
Got a subsequent question for the Mayor. Yes.
Thank you, Alex. I'm looking specifically at the Lindott Road example, and it really hasn't changed from the previous iteration where you are ultimately going to be removing all of the trees in poor health and over time at their end of life, which means you can actually pull them out. These trees have survived a 10-year drought, so I'm just curious as to why you feel the need to remove those trees over time.
I think what we've said is that we'll remove the trees in poor health and sort of in a staged manner. rather than going forward and sort of, you know, that wholesale, you know, raise the street. And I guess, as I mentioned earlier, you know, these are very high level plans, so we actually haven't gone down to the level of getting detailed site survey. We would actually expect to get, you know, an arborist on board, come and assess all the trees, and often what the arborist would do is give a, you know, I guess a useful life expectancy for each tree, and you would look at that useful life expectancy, and that's where you'd have to make the judgment calls. And if, for example, you only had 2 years left of useful life, then yes, you might make the call. But if you had 15 years left, then yeah, you know, it'd have to be a very good reason to remove that tree. So I think definitely hear your concerns, but I would imagine these would be picked up in the next level of detail.
I've sort of got a question about the total cost of the plan. Like we know Lindott Road was around $2.4 million to deliver. Do we have an idea of what the total cost, and then I suppose the yearly maintenance as well? Of any sort of even ballpark figures in that regard? Sam, are you going?
Yeah, through the chair. Sorry, Alex wasn't involved in the actual cost considerations per se. We did get it costed through a quantity surveyor, and there was a significant peer review internally of those costs to make sure they were aligned with projects that have recently been worked on as well with through some of our contracts for various landscape projects. In terms of the overall cost, it's within the body of the report. The total for all of the projects was just over $3 million in today's dollars per se, but effectively, and that's, you know, all of the entry statements combined in that regard. The actual maintenance costs, we haven't actually gone to that level of detail, Councillor Hughes, and that's something that we would do as part of the detailed design per se, but there is definitely going to be ongoing maintenance costs. There are irrigation systems that we'll be setting up to assist the establishment of the trees, backflow devices, and some of the formative pruning that would need to occur. So,
if there's no further questions, I'll move to Councillor. You got a question, Councillor Sample?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The actual first thing I'd like to say is that from Alex and Landscape and all the people that put this together, along with team leader Paul Cleghorn, I think it's fantastic to be put together like this, and certainly brought here to us tonight, and a hell of a lot of food for thought. And there's probably a long way we need to go. One of the things that stands out to me, and on pages 68, 62 and 51, they're the entrance signs. Now, we all know what we've put up with entrance signs into this town for many years now, and we certainly won't talk about any rusty nails. And the thing is with it, that whatever entrances we have, and for any of you that want to go for a nice drive out in the country, you'll find that a lot of towns now, every one of their entrances have got the same style of entrances. And on page 55, 62 and 51, you'll see that beautiful town of Gawler spelt the right way, running along the right way, not up and down, and so forth, with the tree verge, which is simple and quick to be able to let know the person's coming into the town that this is the town of Gawler. And I sort of hope that the way that everything, the vision goes, that we're going to keep that uniform of the same style of entry into every section of our town, because you know, like, and nothing is in here about the so-called southern entrance at this stage. So I'm just wondering, did it get lost, or is there some thought to put some beautiful bright bushes that might cover them up, or whatever along, or do something with it? Because at the moment, after $400,000, there's been nothing done, and as an elected member, it's not very nice to get the comments that we get. So I'm just wondering, certainly I'd support this motion tonight with all the great work that's been done in putting it together, but I think we've got a long way to go. At least a start can be done here with the officer's recommendation, and I will support that.
So I'll move to Councillor Goldstone, who was going to move the motion. So if you'd like to speak, Councillor Goldstone.
Yeah, can you hear me now still, David?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Okay. Well, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with an additional dot point if I can. And that additional dot point simply says that the plan be reviewed and updated on an ongoing basis as required. It just keeps the plan current as hopefully it gets implemented over the years. So yeah, that the plan be reviewed and updated on an ongoing basis. Be reviewed and updated on an ongoing basis. Are you happy for me to speak to it, David?
Yes, yeah, that's good.
First up, I'd just like to say well done to Sam, Paul and the consultants for progressing and finalising the plan since my initial budget bid was endorsed by council, and for the detailed report. Not surprisingly, I fully support the recommendation, which importantly recommends the adoption of the draft plan. It notes the beautification works that are underway and allows for at least some upgraded works to be completed this year. I think the plan now has a good mix of capital works and service improvements, which I previously questioned. We've had a very good response to the community consultation, with the majority clearly in favour, with very few against. You know, we really have had a good response to this. This indicates to me that there is support in the community to focus more on the type of issues and works that we have in the plan. Just quickly, the Footpath and Verge cleaning trial is a good example, I think, of the service improvements I've mentioned previously. Hopefully this trial can be ongoing and be expanded to the other areas of council, particularly the older parts of council. Another example is the clean up and plantings at the southern entrance, and which is a great improvement already. In summary, I'm happy with the plan, which I believe is supported by the community. Happy with the identified spends for this financial year, although I would have preferred to have seen the Ryde Street or one of the Ryde Street roundabouts upgraded instead of the 6th Street Adelaide Road one. Still, if it means the plan gets up for recommendation for adoption, I'm happy to go with the projects that are in the recommendation. I just hope members will support it. It's certainly, I think, something that's supported by the general community, and yeah, look forward to it being adopted. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Goldstone. I've got Councillor Fraser's got a hand up, so I'll go. Would you like to speak in the microphone? Yeah, if you just.
I'm happy to second it, and I would like to speak to it. I think it's great. Obviously, we can't do it all at once, so therefore there will be modifications to it as each year. If something comes up in the budget, well, then there'll be modifications to it for that to happen. So it'll be very interesting to see. But I do think it's really important that we do move with it, and we're moving with it now, and that every year that we make some sort of allocation in the budget to keep moving forward with it. So yes, I'm happy to second this.
Thanks. Councillor Kosh, I'll move you.
I'll be speaking against this motion. I won't be supporting it for a number of reasons. The first is that when the plan went out for community consultation, there was no budget allocated to it. So although the community supported it overwhelmingly, they didn't realise the actual cost. That was over $3 million, and they got no indication whatsoever what the ongoing maintenance costs will be. I mean, we are in a situation where our budget is very tight. We're getting close to 100% you know, when it comes to our income and debt. And now we just seem to just want to add on to that. We've actually promised the community that our next major upgrade will be the pool. And now when I look at this, I think the pool is starting to slip away. I'm concerned that about the ongoing maintenance. We had a budget bid for 2 new horticultural workers. There's only 1. And we were told that we desperately needed those 2 because they couldn't keep up with the work already. And now we're looking at adding more work, and I can't see how we can actually maintain you know, this ongoing program without either putting up the rates or reducing a service somewhere else. So that means we will have to cut a service somewhere else. Otherwise, our rates will just keep on going up. About also that we've actually the cost of water. So I'm concerned. I went to a workshop a couple of years ago where it talked about cooling urban spaces, and all they talked about was splashing water around. It looks like this is what this is talking about as well. I'm concerned about the trees on Lyndoch Road. I think the reason why the trees on Lyndoch Road look so badly is because of the high voltage lines. I think if you wanted to solve the problem there and increase the life of those trees, you'd actually lift the high voltage lines up and allow some of those branches to actually grow into the low voltage lines. That was not included in this plan. The plan was to chop the trees down and start again, and you will end up with exactly the same problem with tree branches growing into the high voltage lines. And again, they would have to be pollarded. Yeah, so I don't think this plan really embraces what we need in Gawler. I think what people were really concerned about was just the general appearance and how untidy it looked. And that's actually been achieved by doing some pruning and some tidying up, getting the contractors to do their job properly, and also working on a trial with the Corrections Services Community Offenders Program. Actually have done a wonderful job, and I think that goes a long way to actually alleviating some of the concerns people had about the untidiness of our town. So although a great deal of effort has been put into this plan, I can't support it at the moment, and I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Koch. Yeah, just noticed, yeah, as I've said before, councillors, if you could have your microphone turned off, those at home on Zoom. Councillor, we've got the Mayor. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, there's lots of elements of this plan that I quite like, but when I look at it as a whole, I see a wholesale removal of mature trees and trees that have survived a 10-year drought. And with the latest report coming out from the IPCC, I just think that is not what we need to be doing. We need to be securing our trees, preserving them and nurturing them, not planting exotics. I don't agree that we should be planting exotics. They look beautiful, absolutely, but I don't think they'll grow. And I'll give you a really good example. In Williston, where I live, a whole street trees were removed and planted with exotics. Half of them died, they've been replanted and they're struggling. They're continuing to struggle, if not for the residents that are trying to keep them alive. That's my street, I know all about it. There's also many trees in Williston being removed currently, many of them that seem to be in very good health. So I am very, very worried that I'm sure this plan will get up, but we have to think really carefully about what we want. Do we want brand new trees that won't survive as we get bigger and bigger and longer droughts? We can put more water, but when you get 50-degree heat days and wind and dust, I'm not sure that, you know, the exotic trees will survive. So we have to be really, really smart about what we plant. I look at the Lyndoch Road, and I've gone up and down that road over and over again and looked at the trees, and there's a handful of trees that you could pull out, and the rest are in fact in very good condition. So why would you pull them out? I just don't understand it. I completely hear what the Deputy Mayor's saying around signage, and absolutely there's a real opportunity to improve our signage and get some really smart signage at our entranceways. When this plan started, it was all about cleaning up and making the town look a bit tidier. It wasn't about spending millions and millions of dollars, and we don't know how much this is going to cost to maintain, depreciate. We're taking over the DIT roads maintenance wholesale, and I'm a resident of Gawler, I pay rates, and I have a real problem with that. I don't want my rates going up, and I don't want my council's debt burden to go up. It's up high enough as it is. 95% financial liability ratio. Our ceiling is 100%, you know, and I just don't agree that we should add to our debt burden and think that's okay. It's not okay. So I would love to have worked on this plan a bit more. I would love to have refined it. I don't see much feedback from the elected members in this plan, so I really feel quite disrespected in the feedback that the elected members gave. So I don't have a lot of confidence in the consultation because no one knows how much it's going to cost. There's nothing in that. Councillor Koch is absolutely right. So I think when you ask people, what do you want? Do you want really nice things? What are you going to say? Of course you do. You're going to say yes. That's a leading question. So I really am disappointed with this process. I think that I haven't been engaged. I haven't been, you know, my opinion hasn't been listened to. So I don't feel that I have any connection with this plan. So I wish it well, and I'm sure it'll get up and supported, but I do have grave concerns about our capacity to afford it. Thank you.
Any other speakers to the motion? I don't know, as chair, I'm really not supposed to make a comment myself, but it's yeah, I just I sort of support project 1 and 2, but project 3, the Red Banks Road, is that's a roundabout that we were promised landscaping when it was developed. And it was part of the initial plans as councillors we did actually see. So yeah, I'd be very much after some funds from DIT and also some commitment to maintenance from DIT as well for myself to support this motion. Councillor Goldstone, would you like to close the debate?
Yes, I would, thanks. Just a couple of quick comments. We need to remember that this whole plan is about improving the appearance of Gawler. You know, for too long it's been in the condition it is, and it's actually got worse in some areas. I think this plan contains a lot of stuff that's going to improve the appearance, and that's been reflected by the consultation response that we've had. I mean, when you compare the consultation response to like even the budget, you know, there's no competition there. Talk of a $3 million spend is a bit mischievous, I think, because it was never intended that this is a one-off project. It's a rolling program subject to budget allocations. So each year the council of the day will determine whether there should be any funds put aside to further implement stages of this plan. The plan also involves the planting of many more trees than is recommending for removal. So, you know, there are sort of answers to all of the questions raised, but I just get back to the original recommendation, which I think will be fully supported by the community. And you know, I would still recommend its adoption by council. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Goldstone. That completes the debate. I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please vote. So I've got 5 councillors for, and those against. So we've got 4 against. So the motion's carried. Move to 7.4, review of the town centre car parking strategy. We've got a mover from the Mayor. Would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Seconder, Councillor Valonga, would you like to speak? Or no, just happy to second. Okay. If there's no comments, I'll put the motion. Sorry, Councillor Fraser, you'd like to speak to it?
Noted in the report, I noticed that you know, how we, people in the businesses in Gawler complain because there's no car parks in Gawler, and you know, their customers can't get a park. At Christmas time, we organised car parking over on Goose Island. We cleaned it up, we got it all ready for car parking. We asked the businesses to ask their staff to park there, and nobody used it. Their staff still used a normal car parking. And, you know, I don't know what you have to do. It's not a long way to walk. It's just across a bridge and you're in the main street. Like and yet the businesses still complain there's not enough car parking. If they can't get their own staff to make room for their customers, but they expect us to keep creating car parks, and that makes me really cross. So that's just what I'd like to say.
Thanks, Councillor Fraser. That's a good point, because it was well done by the council staff setting that car park. They actually put a lot of bunting and a lot of work, and I thought they promoted it to the local businesses as well. And it's always been a bugbear for me when I see business people parking out the front of their business or close by. So yeah, thank you for that. Any other speakers on this matter? If yeah, CEO.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I had cause to have a chat with Karen Brom yesterday on a couple of matters, and I mentioned to her that we had this item on the agenda, and she just wanted me to pass on the fact that she's been receiving feedback from some of the businesses on the main road in respect to the changing patterns of retail and a lot more sort of Uber deliveries and pickups, and just flagging that if, as part of our deliberations, we can turn our mind to possibly introducing shorter time periods, like say 15-minute parking or 10-minute parking at particular points along the main street to accommodate for, again, this emerging sort of trend. But that may well come out again through the consultation process. But I did invite Karen to come along today, but she couldn't. But I said that I would sort of present that feedback.
Yeah, thank you. We do have a few loading zones, and they do get used, and I think they're quite handy in the main street and around the town. So yeah, that's quite a good comment, and something, especially with home deliveries and whatnot, expanding. I agree. If there's no further, Councillor Goldstone, you'd like to speak?
Yeah, just quickly, we also need to keep in mind the increasing population and, you know, developments the likes of Audi and so forth are all going to affect the parking issues in the Gawler area. They're not going to get better, they're going to possibly get worse. So it's a good time to now start to do this review. Happy with the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Davies, you'd like to speak as well?
Yeah, so I did get some feedback, which I forwarded on to the members a few weeks ago from a local bakery about the concept of short loading times as well. I think it's, yeah, obviously with the lockdowns and such, there has been a lot of people getting into Uber Eats and menu log and that type of thing, but also just in general, it's always been the case for example, a pizza shop that people call in and they pick up the pizza and then they leave and that kind of thing. So there are areas where I think that might just be a common sense type of loading zone to have. So I think that would be something to have a look at in certain areas.
Thanks, Councillor Davies. Councillor Sample.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. You know, I bring it up again, and Councillor Fraser mentioned before, or the Mayor, signage. You know, like, we need to have signage that people can read in one split second as to where the parking is. The other day I thought, well, I wonder if they've ever done anything about the car park up on top of Target. I went up there, and I tell you what, I could have shot a slug gun around and wouldn't have hit not even a pigeon. And there's more pigeons in Gawler now than there ever was. There's no sign. I've said to people, why don't you park up the top of the Target car park? Fantastic. Where do you mean? They don't know where it is. We lack signage. The other thing we lack doing, we must, and I don't know how we go about it, but we must have somebody that's got a lot more brains than me to promote, to watch these beautiful buses and the people singing along to themselves because they're not interrupting anybody because there's nobody else in the bus. Now that the buses are going around Gawler all the time, how about a bit of education to say to people, you don't need to come down and try and find a car park on the main street. Come down on the bus and do your shopping. And I'll tell you what, I've been on the bus a couple of times and those drivers are so helpful. They will let you off closer to your house and everything, the whole lot. And you couldn't get anybody more helpful. But just take time to look at watch those buses go around the town. What can we do to make more people use them? Because it's such an asset, it's not being used. Signage and get people to use the buses.
Thank you, Councillor Samble. Move to the Mayor, you'd like to, yep, happy to close the debate. All those for the motion. Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Move to 7.5, policy review. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Fraser, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Seconded by Councillor Koch. Would you like to know? Anyone speak for or against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So I'll just move through the agenda items. Any items listed for discussion at future meetings? Any councillors got? Councillor Samble, you've mentioned signage, so yeah.
No, for future meetings. Oh, signage won't, yes, and get people bums on buses. But at the present moment, if you drive around the bypass road, you'll notice all the grass has been cut. But it's been cut by learners because, you know, it's down the middle, they didn't get out the tractor and cut them off around the bushes and that. But we in Gawler here, on the sides of our roads, and maybe Sam may be able to answer it, let's not go through the same thing that we had last year, the year before, where the sides of our roads don't get cut, but we keep getting told that they're Dipti's job to do. I'm just wondering whether we can have a discussion about the cleaning up of those roads. And you drive out of Gawler now, and the roads that are called Dipti roads are a mess, but the other roads have been cut. So I'm just wondering if we could have a discussion about a better clean look effect that when Diptis have got their tractors going, they put a bit extra fuel in and do the sides of our roads.
Yeah, we could add it to the agenda unless Sam's got an update, but I think it's something that they've been working with DIT on. Yeah, I'll just hand over to Sam.
I can assure you, Councillor Samble, that we're regularly in contact with our counterparts in DIT, reminding them of their obligations and effectively reminding them of the situation we had last year, particularly with some of these verges weren't maintained for a very long period of time. And it's taken a mayoral intervention with the minister to effectively get them to come out here and do what they need, they're actually contracted to do. So we have been on them already because with all the rain we've had, spring's around the corner and we know where we're going to be with respect to vegetation. So I think, as I mentioned in the beautification plan, we're going to be very proactive in respect to banging the door down to make sure they're out here. So but that's the best that we can do. And there is some positive in the sense that it is turning. They are appointing some contract managers. We seem to have a bit more line of sight with respect to the actual people that are managing these contracts. But I don't think it's going to be perfect, but it's certainly improving.
Yeah, I think last time the Mayor invited the Minister and the day the Minister came out or was coming out, it was all done. Yeah, it was done that day. Yeah, no, I think that might be timely for the next IES meeting. Thank you, Councillor Samble. I'll move to questions without notice. Councillor Fraser.
Through the chair to Sam, Sunnydale Avenue, Lindop Road and around the bend at the wheat sheaf, where are we up to with that?
Yeah. I'll move to Sam. Is that about stormwater or?
No, this is a outstanding motion. It's probably getting on a bit now in regards to effectively a safety improvement as you're coming off Lindock Road and also around the bend. I know that staff are trying to liaise with the Barossa. There's been a little bit of a hold up in that regard. Councillor Fraser, I have seen a correspondence this week that's gone back out to the Barossa Council just because it's their road from the bend. So we actually need them to sign off on it. And the part of the issue is that it requires a bit of road widening around the bend to facilitate a solution. So they have to come to the party to want to do that. So it's not as simple as just putting a line down the road or some pavement bars. So we have done a design. We are consulting with them. We're trying to get them to agree with the outcome. That's probably where we're at. And then hopefully I can provide an update back. And there is a motion, so I will bring a report back to the, I think it's the IES or council, I can't recall. John?
Yeah, Councillor Goldstone had his hand up. I'm not sure whether it was
Yeah.
for future meetings or.
Yeah, actually, I had a point 9 under agenda item 9 about items listed for discussion at a future meeting. I just wondered whether we could get an update report on the success or otherwise of the plantings at the southern entry statement.
Yeah.
For the next meeting, for the next
there's
meeting.
actually a motion on notice or without notice if you're after a report.
Oh, well, just
yeah,
wanted to get in.
Yeah,
well, I can move it under motions without notice.
So questions without notice? No further questions. Motions without notice about.
I had a question.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Davies, go ahead.
Well, so I had a couple actually. I just first off, just about the toilets and specifically the ones that there's currently a motion about finding out what's happening with the toilets. I was just wondering what was the ones in the multi-story car park area. I was just wondering if anyone had an update on that.
Sam or OCO?
Yeah, I followed that matter up today with the property officers, and I've asked to make sure that we have a report on that at the next IES meeting. So we'll follow that up accordingly.
Thank you. Further question, Councillor Davies?
And then just around something that I sent through today, what's the situation with our cleaning of playground areas? What's the schedule for that? Do we have people doing that?
So for those probably watching on YouTube, that's about the fact there's mud and other materials on play equipment. But yeah, whether there's an answer from Sam, maybe.
Through the chair, I've actually that query come through this afternoon. I'm seeking further feedback. Certainly, we're out there visiting the playgrounds and have a regime in place in respect to inspections. I just need to find some further detail in regards to the mechanisms and frequency in respect to cleaning.
Thanks. So you're looking into that. Yep. Any further questions about notice? I'll move to motions without notice. And Councillor Goldstone's asking for a report on the plantings of the southern entry statement.
Yeah, just an update report.
For an update report. That'd be the native grasses that are planted around the sculptures, is that?
Yeah, I just wanted to get an update as to whether the planting's been successful or not, that's all.
Yeah, from my point of view, they do look great. And yeah, there's certainly a number of species there, but you do need to know your species. So maybe a report with some photos of the different species and a bit of information might be handy for elected members to sort of distribute back to people that do ask the question, which we do get asked. So
yeah, the only reason I put it up is because I've been, contacted by a few people who sort of said they can't tell any difference. So, so it would be good to get an update report. That's all.
So yeah, I think, is this got enough clarity? Yeah, so staff are happy. So I think I need a seconder from the floor. Councillor Vallelonga is happy to second it. So any discussion for or against the motion? Councillor Koch, you want to speak to it?
I'm happy to support this. I've driven past it a few times, and there's actually a whole range of species there, a whole suite of species. And from my opinion, it's looking fantastic. You probably find there's some native animals in there as well. So it's actually doing what it was designed to do. But so I'll be looking forward to seeing the report.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be good information for all councillors and the community. So yeah, I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion, those against. Did you vote, Councillor Samble? I'll do that again. All those in favour of the motion. Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. So I'll close the meeting. Thanks, and thank you for putting up with the sound and my chairmanship skills. Thanks all.